Welcome to BACKtalk, the award-winning podcast from Successful Black Parenting Magazine, where we go beyond headlines and dig into the actual conversations that shape our family, our culture, and our future. Spoiler alert, if your child loves the magic of Santa and is near this podcast right now, you may want to mute it or move to another room because we're talking about giving the real deal holiday talk to your kids about Christmas. What if the real magic of Santa isn't about keeping a secret, but about knowing exactly when your child is ready for the truth? Or maybe if you're a single mom like I was, you had no other choice but to tell your kids the truth about Santa. We're going to discuss these scenarios and the best practice to handle this topic without all of the trauma. So stay tuned.
This is BACKtalk by Successful Black Parenting Magazine, the most listened to podcast for parents by parents.
Hey guys, and we're back. I'm your host, Janice Robinson-Celeste. If you're watching this live, you're officially part of the conversation, and we are live and on location. So, as always, anything can happen, but we're ready. This show is powered by our growing community of Black parents, educators, caregivers, and advocates. And now we've taken that community to the next level with the Black Parenting Academy. So I want you guys to check it out at blackparentingacademy.com. It's a private, safe space where you can connect, get answers, and access resources that you won't find anywhere else. And I'll drop that link later in the show, so stay with us. And because you are live, yes, you can jump into the comment section right now with your thoughts or questions. I'll be checking them as we go throughout the episode, and you can bring your voice into this discussion. So settle in, share the stream if you believe conversations like this matter, and let's get into it. Because on this episode of BACKtalk, I am speaking with Tanyell Cole. She is the marriage and family therapist. She's a parenting expert and the founder of Jumping Jelly Beans Play Space. So welcome to the show, Tanyell. How are you? You are muted, so make sure you're mute.
Hello. How are you?
I am well, so thank you for coming on the show. For those meeting you for the first time, I want you to introduce yourself and share the work you do as both therapist and the co-founder of Jumping Jelly Beans.
Yes. So I'm Tanyell. I am a mom of 12. So I have 12 lovely children. I have two that I've lost.
No.
And I am the founder of Jumpin' Jelly Beans Boutique Play Space. It is an indoor play space for kids 10 and under. My background is marriage and family therapy. So before I founded and started the play space, I had a private practice where I met with couples, families, children, and we worked through traumas. We worked through childhood traumas to better their future, their relationships, and all of that good stuff.
Oh, that's definitely needed in this world, especially we got a lot going on, people, especially today in this environment. So a lot of parents and children right now in this situation with everything from ICE on are going through some trauma. I saw something this morning that was just devastating about a little boy that they cannot find. They separated from his father. And it made me think about what trauma that child's going to go through and how do you lose a child in such a short amount of time and space. So we're going to need a lot more people like you doing the work, just doing the work. So tell me something. We always do an icebreaker, right? We always say, tell us something about yourself that most people don't know, but that helps us understand the heart behind the work you do with your family.
What is something that most people don't know? I tend to be transparent here lately and have shared a lot. Something that most people don't know is my mom. I broke a generational curse. So my mother was a teenage mother. She had me at 15, and I then had my son at 15, my first son at 15. And so it was, my grandmother was a teenage mother. She was 18, so not quite as young as my mother and myself. But I have since broke that generational curse. It stopped with me. My oldest daughter is 22 and successfully not a teenage mother. So that is something that I like to share. And I think that was the foundation of what made me go into marriage and family therapy, as a study. because having my mom and then myself and trying to understand that pattern and how these things happen, even though my mom worked so hard to prevent that from happening. And so I think that was the foundation for me going into therapy.
Okay. No, therapy, we need more therapy. I tell people, look at therapy as a way to better yourself, not as something that's wrong with you. Because a lot of our community thinks that, oh, yeah, I'm nothing's wrong with me. I don't need to go therapy. It's supposed to better yourself, right? We all
Exactly,
need to do the work.
exactly.
All need to do the work. So we're talking about the holidays. So we just went through Thanksgiving. Christmas is coming up really fast. How old were you when you were told there was no Santa Claus? And I want my audience to answer that too. If you're listening, whether you're listening now or to the replay, how old were you when you were told there was no Santa? And then who told you and how?
So it was never said. It was never, there is no Santa. It just was assumed that I knew. So my
Oh,
family tradition was all the adults would stay up all night long. They would put all the toys together. The kids would go to bed. And then I had an uncle that would get on, the roof and stomp and do all these things
oh,
to
wow.
kind of wake us up in the middle of the night. And then we try to run and go catch Santa and see him. But that stopped once you turned 16. So there was this, once you turned 16 you could stay up. You didn't have to go to sleep at 13, but you couldn't be in the adult presence at 13. And then once you hit that magic age, you could stay up and do all the things that the adults were doing and see what they did all night. So it was never said. You just, oh, you can stay up now, and oh, so there is no Santa. You
No,
got
you're just like,
time, so yeah. Um, right, right. But I figured it out pretty early. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I snuck out of my room and I saw my uncles putting together, I think it was like a Barbie dream house,
oh,
that they were putting together. And so I knew at that point, okay, this whole thing is a facade.
that's interesting. See, I was told I was probably around 9. And I remember, like a lot of people, my cousin found the stash and she was like, come here. I'm telling you, it's no Santa Claus. Let me show you. See all these presents right here? This is what you get for Christmas. I bet you to be under the tree. And that means there's no Santa Claus. And I was like, that cousin today, to this day, I'm like,
Was she not a believer herself, do you
I
think?
guess not. I guess
Okay.
she was like 3 years older than me, so she's like she probably knew. And I was that girl. I always believed in fantasy. I remember telling my dad at 5, when Rudolph comes, tell him I'll be his friend. I love him because the little cartoon that he had no friends.
Exactly. Yes, yes.
I'll be his friends because that's how I was. That's the girl I was. I was like a little kid. I was sweet. Not this one, not cousin, not so much, not so much. But she
Honestly, I think that's how a lot of kids find out. I think it's usually another child that tells them,
yeah. So
that ruins that magic.
absolutely. And I think that's why, like, I think it should be the parents, but I like how they kind of eased you in that. But when kids ask spontaneously, like, is Santa real in the middle of maybe a gift opening or out of random curiosity, what's the healthiest and most developmentally supportive way for parents to respond to something like that?
I think the first thing is to ask the child what makes you ask that question. To try to understand what are they really asking. A lot of times kids aren't asking that specific question, is Santa real? But maybe they're trying to figure out, well, where did this toy come from? Because I saw it, at Walmart, or we didn't go and talk to Santa. So how did Santa know that I wanted this toy? So sometimes they're just trying to understand and not really asking, is Santa real? So I think the first thing is to ask the child, what makes you ask that? And start that conversation from their point of view of understanding what exactly they're trying to find out.
Right. And we have different scenarios we're going to talk about today. So, like, sometimes parents have to tell the truth early because of either finances not being there this year, changing family circumstances or traditions they can't maintain. How can parents break the news gently when it's not a choice but a necessity and they have to tell them early?
So Janice, my question to parents would be, what is your purpose of Santa? I know society has said Santa brings gifts, Santa brings toys, and it's really about the gift giving.
Mhm.
But what's your purpose? If your purpose of Santa is more so the spirit of Christmas, the magic of Christmas, it doesn't have to always be gift giving, right? The original, and I'm sorry, I don't know if you. Hopefully, that's not my phone is dinging.
That's
I thought I
okay.
put it on silent.
That's okay.
Um, the the um the original Santa, he would leave trinkets in the kids' shoes, right? Say Nick, it was just cookies or things of that nature, nuts and things in the kids'
Mhm.
shoes. So when we ask ourselves as parents, what is our purpose behind Santa, and what does Santa represent for us, and what traditions are we starting to are trying to start? That's the first thing, because sometimes you don't have to ruin the magic if your purpose is not simply gift giving, these elaborate, playstations that Santa brought and things like that. But in the sense, if that is it, if you are, if Santa's purpose is gift giving, and you need to break the news, I would explain it to kids the same way we talk about Disney princesses, the same way, we talk about Toy Story and their toys talking, and things like that, imagination, pretend play, that kind of thing. So I would introduce it to them in that way of explaining that, Santa is a character, same as Cinderella. And this is what his character represents, and this is why some kids have Santa, or some families do Santa. So that's how I would do it, or
Okay.
recommend.
No, that's a good way. I remember going through a divorce and I had three young girls, and I had no money. I always tell people about our Christmas miracle. We had zero money, so I knew I was going to the dollar store to get gifts, and they had big Christmases before, like playhouses and Barbie Jeeps, and they had the big Christmases, and then here we are. I'm like, oh, dollar store, I gotta go to the dollar store. So I broke it to them when they were very young, and I said, listen. I said, I know before we had great Christmases, but I have to tell you, Santa doesn't have money like that this year. Matter of fact, Santa is me, and I have to go to the dollar store. So I'm gonna do the best I can to get you something, but I can't guarantee I'm gonna be able to get. We're gonna have a Christmas, and so the weirdest thing happened. The guys, you want to come in for this story? This is a good story. This is truly a Christmas miracle story. It should be like one of those WeTV Lifetime stories, because
Yes.
nothing like this has ever happened to me since. So I was, feeling bad. The three little girls, and they all wanted these dolls. And you guys can look it up on the internet. They're called Kenya dolls, and they all came in different complexions. And my daughters were each different complexion. My oldest light skin to the darkest, right? And so they each wanted one. They had three dolls, but they were like, um, back then they cost pretty much about $80 if I got all three. And so I was like, I don't have $80. So I was like, I don't know what this. So I guess we'll go to the dollar store. It is. Went to sleep that night. I had a dream. I remember it like it was yesterday. Just all black vastness, and like a speed limit sign, black and white, was coming toward me in the vastness. A 30 and a 1. It's just a 30 and then a 1, and it kept coming to me like this, just like that. And I thought, I'm gonna play that on the lottery. I got 50 cents. I play it on the lottery, throw it all away. Gamble that 50 cents away. Put that 50 cent on there. It came out straight, and I got just enough to buy those dolls.
Wow.
Yes. And I got
Wow.
them, I got $80, and I was able to buy those $3 for my daughters for Christmas, and they were so happy. They were happy with those dolls.
Wow.
So Christmas miracles do happen. It really do happen to me. So I
Yes.
want to encourage people who are having a hard time out there. You never know what can happen. Things can change in the day or a night, in my case. So keep your heads up.
Exactly.
Keep hope alive.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. And I think that's what Santa is. Santa is hope, right? Santa can be hope. He can represent hope and keeping hope alive.
Absolutely. And then I remember trying later when the movie The Santa Claus came out, Clause Claus came out. The movie theater had like promotion with the Santa business cards they had on around their border. Like if you find this card and you put on the suit, you'll become Santa and all this stuff. That was the premise of the movie. I remember trying to bring the magic back and say, oh no, it's real now. We got money. I put those cards all over the house. I was trying. They didn't believe me by then. It's too late. But I tried.
Yes.
But you have some parents who want the credit. They don't want their kids to believe in Santa. They're like, I worked hard for these gifts, and I want them to know. And they just want kids to know that Daddy bought these gifts for you, not some white guy in a suit, red suit.
Yes.
So, but how can we do that? Like, how do we, if that's what we want them to know, how do we communicate that truth without taking away the joy or the cultural magic of the holidays? Because that just seemed kind of harsh to me. Like straight up, like I bought these. I know each
Yes.
his own, but
So it's so funny. I had decided with my kids, that's kind of how we felt. Like my kids are going to know that the gifts are coming from us. But there was this struggle because I loved Santa growing up as a kid. So I loved our family tradition. So what I did is I just didn't talk about Santa at all. I just didn't say anything. We didn't go do pictures with Santa. I never brought Santa up. And my kids just believed on their own. It was crazy. I was thinking we never talk about Santa in this house, but they would say, "Oh, is Santa coming?" And Santa got me this. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to lean into this a little bit. Now, our last name is Cole, so it went along with it. So I would say, "Oh, Santa Coles is coming," So I would kind of play off of Santa. Santa Coles is coming. And at that point, I started buying nothing but black Santas. So for me, it was if they're going to believe Santa's going to be black in this house. And so I only bought black Santa Claus. We never took pictures with Santa in the mall if it wasn't, a black Santa. And it wasn't until they were much older that we found a black Santa to take a picture with as a family. And I would play every Christmas. I don't know if you've heard the song Santa Claus is a Black Man. I don't know if you've heard that. Okay. So I would play that every Christmas. And that song kind of gives it away, right? She says he looks just like you. And so it kind of gives it away. And so for us, it was leaning in, but not playing off of the traditional that this jolly, this white Santa's coming in and bringing you these gifts. I would say to our kids, Santa looks just like Daddy. And so, things like that to kind of, for them to know in their minds when it came out that there is no Santa, they could correlate the two, so Santa was Dad this whole time. That's kind of how we leaned into it. I don't want to take away from parents who want the credit. I understand that because you do work hard and you don't, but I think the premise of that comes from a lot of people don't want it to be that this white Santa is coming in and buying all these gifts when we work hard and we want the appreciation. So how can you create a tradition and memories that's still giving you the credit, but also leaning into the magic of Christmas?
Right. Now, how did you handle your children not telling other children when their parents want them to believe, and they're like, "Oh, Santa's bringing me this." How did you manage to let them know not to like ruin it for other kids?
Yeah, so they believed. They
Mhm.
they believed
They still
in
believe.
Santa.
Oh, they
They
still
believed,
believe.
even
Okay.
though we didn't say it. We didn't. They believed on their own. It's so funny. I called my kids, my older kids, right before this, and said, "Is Santa real?" And my daughter, who's 23, she's like, "Yes, Santa's real. Why are you asking me this?"
That's so cute.
But they still believe. The thing is, Santa was black. So that was the part for them. We were
Okay.
in a Michael's one day and my daughter was singing, Santa Claus is a black man. And this guy looked over at her, this white guy, and I was like, in our house he is, and so he's like, oh, okay, so they still believe. That was just the only difference is Santa was black for them.
Okay. Okay. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So let's talk about signs of development, because what age, like, what are the signs that a child is emotionally or developmentally ready for that Santa conversation besides just their age? Because as I had to tell mine very young.
Yeah, definitely more questions. They're asking more questions, their maturity level. Usually kids that are ready to have the talk, they're leaning out of all imagination if you think about it, because Santa is imagination. So they're leaning away from most of that. They're starting to know when if you go to Disney, that the people in the costumes aren't really those people in the costumes. They are maturing out of the things that are pretend play. So you start to see it, and as a parent, okay, my child isn't doing as much pretend play, and now they're asking more and more questions about Santa. Even if you're still trying to force it, they know, they may say, no, I saw this, or how does Santa know all of these kids' names, or how is he getting to all of these houses? Like, their questions are more logical in what they're asking, and not just very basic questions.
Okay.
So I think then you know.
Right. Now, some parents feel guilty that they might ruin Christmas by telling the truth about Santa. What would you say to a parent who feels this guilt or fear about having this conversation?
So Christmas isn't just about Santa. Let's remember that. There's so much more to it. And so again, I would ask the parent, what are you holding on to? What does this mean for you? Because a lot of times the guilt is something, that we are struggling with. It doesn't really have anything to do with our kids. It's more so things that we are bringing into the conversation, maybe from our childhood, or from things that we're telling ourselves, negative self-talk, or what society is saying we should be doing or not doing. So that I would start with the parents with what's the guilt that you're feeling about this? What are you telling yourself? Because Christmas is more than just Santa. There's so many people that celebrate Christmas and don't do Santa. There's so many different religions, different people who don't do Christmas the same way that we do in a traditional sense here in the US. So it can still be magical and we not have Santa involved.
I agree. I agree. Now, in my case, where I had a cousin tell me there's no Santa Claus, if your child hears the truth from a cousin or classmate or older sibling, or even on social media instead of from a parent, how can a parent repair that moment if they want to keep Santa going and rebuild that trust? Because I didn't succeed in that at all when the Santa Claus movie came out, and I tried to fix it.
Yes, yes. So in that moment, I would first again ask questions. So have a conversation with your child. I would ask them, what did they think? What were their thoughts when the child told them that Santa wasn't real? What was their first response? Do they believe that? So I would have a heart to heart conversation with them. And then I would explain that everybody's different. That is a perfect opportunity to introduce to your kids that people think all kinds of different things, that we're all so different. But we need to lean into not being judgmental about people who think different from us, and that it's okay if they think differently or they do things different in their house. So I would go with it from that standpoint. So explaining to the child, hey, everybody thinks differently. You can even use an example with something that you may know is different about that particular child, of how they do something in their house. You can use an example of, in our house, bedtime is at 8 o'clock, but in some people's house, bedtime's at 9 o'clock. Everybody does things differently in their household.
Right, right. No, I like that, and I like the idea of y'all were singing the Black Santa, and you were going with Black Santa Claus, and love the earrings too. Black Santa.
Thank you.
For families who still want joy and that wonder and holiday sparkle, even after the truth is revealed, what are some culturally meaningful ways they can keep the magic alive? So maybe they now know there's no Santa, but we want to keep that culture of the Black Santa alive. Like, are there any other types of things? We know we got the song. We know we got Black Santas. Oh, can you suggest anything else?
Yeah, so absolutely. First, the Black Santa's decorating with that is one of my favorite things to do. So keeping that alive. Introducing Kwanzaa. I know Kwanzaa is a holiday that seems to be dying slowly but surely, but reintroducing that, introducing Kwanzaa to your kids, which not only keeps the magic alive, but it keeps it going even after Christmas, when we're starting to get into the rut of the holidays ending, and we're all kind of getting that depressed feeling after the holidays. Kwanzaa is a way to keep the holiday magic going while also talking about our culture, our traditions, and those kind of things. So that's one of the ways, is to introduce a new tradition with your kids.
I like that idea. And then how can older kids help to keep the magic alive? Like, how do we involve them, even though they may know there's no Santa, but they're there. So, are there some suggestions you can give for that?
Yes, bring them in. Bring them, help them be the elves. So they're the ones that's putting together the toys for the younger siblings. They're the ones that's help keeping the toys hidden when you're buying them throughout the year. So keep them involved. Remind them of traditions from when they were younger, when they believed in Santa. Ask them what their favorite parts were so that they can help with their younger siblings or cousins or whoever to keep the magic alive. When kids are involved, it's like little adults when they're part of the secret, then it becomes exciting for them. So, when they're helping you cook, you're more likely to get them to eat the vegetables than when you don't when they don't help cook it. So similar to that with Santa. So if the older kids are involved in keeping the magic alive, then they're less likely to ruin it for somebody else.
Right. No, I agree. And for those people who may be watching a replay of this or watching this live, I want you to write down some of your experiences with Santa and how you were told if Santa wasn't real. How did you tell your own children? I would like to know about some of these things and how do you keep the traditions alive in your family? Because we have some families who didn't grow up with any Santa traditions. Maybe it was faith or maybe the family didn't want to celebrate Christmas. And now they want to build that culture, heritage, faith, and holiday traditions that reflect who they are. What are some ways they can do that and yet still reflect their values that they had growing up? Is that something that you can comment on? Because a lot of people didn't have any traditions and they have to start from scratch.
Yes, yes. Going back to what is important to you as a mom, as a parent, what is important to you? What values do you want to instill in your kids? What core memories do you want them to have? It doesn't have to look like everybody else's. I think that's the big thing. So even now, my kids are getting older. I only have three little kids at home. And so Christmas has to look different now. And it's changing, with the world, things are changing. My mindset is changing. So we don't do Christmas the way that we used to do it because a lot of things have changed. Spending habits have changed, realizing that
Mhm.
I don't want to spend all of this on Christmas just for 3 months later. My kids have no idea where this stuff is, what they've
Right.
done with it. So looking at, okay, what really is important here? What traditions do I want when my kids are sitting down and they're reminiscing? What do I really want them to remember? Do I want them to remember, the PlayStation, or do I want them to remember the conversations, the laughter, the games that we played, the pajamas, the pictures, the photos, all of those things. So that's what I would tell parents that are trying to recreate a holiday tradition. What are the things that you want, your kids to, when they're reminiscing about you and the family, what do you want them to remember? What's the thing?
That's great advice. Absolutely great advice. Now we're at the end of the show, but for listeners who want to follow your journey or stay connected with your work, how can they find you on social media?
So I'm on Instagram. My personal Instagram is non-traditional mommy, and then my business Instagram is just my name, Tanyell Cole. I'm also on Threads, and I also have a YouTube channel where I share personal vlogs and also sit down and do videos where I talk about marriage, homeschooling, parenting, and all of those things.
Okay, guys. So
And
make
that's all
sure.
for non-traditional mommy.
All right, there you go. And make sure you follow her. What city are you in with the jumping jelly beans? I love that.
Yes, so we have three locations. We have two in Tennessee, which is Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Collierville, and then which is out by Memphis, and then we have one in Mississippi, in South Haven, Mississippi.
Okay. Oh, wow. You're everywhere. That's fantastic. You guys hear that? Three locations. Make sure you visit her, Black owned and operated. We support each
Yes.
other. So if you're in those areas, please, please, please go do that. Now, I want to thank you, Tanya, for coming on this show and sharing your time, your wisdom, and your heart with us today, especially right here at the holidays. So this is kind of a special show. We don't usually do themed shows, but I love this idea of talking about Santa because it's a thing that's going to come up for every parent out there, one way or the other, or one belief or the other. So thank you again.
Yes, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay. Hang in there, guys. And I want to thank everyone for watching this, whether you're watching it live or the replay. Thank you for being here and supporting BACKtalk, the award-winning podcast from Successful Black Parenting Magazine. This show exists because our community shows up and engages. So I want to thank you all for coming on and just hanging out with us and talking about Santa. And I really want you to add your own story to the comments because that's so important. I like to hear your stories. I like to celebrate where you celebrate. But if you haven't already, make sure you follow us on every platform. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, wherever you scroll, we are there. Hit follow, like, turn on the notifications, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. We'll be back with more conversations that matter, more voices that inspire, and more truth that strengthens Black families everywhere. And until next time, I wish you all the best and much success. Take care, and thanks for listening, everyone.